Say hi. Hello, everybody. Tempo and
What's up,
Hello.
baby?
Hey.
CJ.
Oh,
Hi, Tempo.
there was a question for you, but let me get it on first.
Hi, CJ.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I definitely feel like that was better than I was expecting based on the trailer.
You look exactly the same as last time.
Maybe a little more gray.
Less beard for sure.
Looking good. Looking good.
I'll say that we definitely laughed a lot this time. It was a lot more lighthearted of an episode instead
Yeah.
of like, and then even though they still had these undertones with the like music sounds and trying to like allude to things, it was much more lighthearted.
Yeah. Sorry, just one second while it's not up yet.
Paul, you want to say hi?
Hi, CJ.
That sounds like
Kyle's
a
here.
show.
Okay, we're live.
All right, I just want to be, my camera is broken. I just want to do audio. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Shine.
How do I do that?
you're doing it.
All right.
You can turn off your video if you want.
Okay.
Who's that?
Yeah.
Fine.
Is it Shine? Let's see.
Julia.
It's fine.
No, Shine.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Hi, Shine.
Fine.
We love you.
I'm here. I am here.
Shine.
Oh, I love you guys too.
With the bus.
We saw you sewing.
Yes, I saw that too.
Yeah.
Jessica was like so hilarious. I was like laughing so hard through it. She was so funny. I just have to watch it again just for her.
Yeah.
It was a really funny episode. It was fun.
She's a real pleasant surprise the whole way through, really.
Yeah, I did not realize how funny she was.
Mhm.
Yeah. I absolutely loved the introduction they did with to Sheila too. That was really cool.
Yeah, me too. Me
Her
too.
introduction was sweet. Mai does not have Zoom.
Oh,
What?
Mai says she doesn't have Zoom. She
Oh,
won't make it.
okay. Yeah, I had to download it so that I could be here this week. I didn't have it for last week.
She said her designated speaker will speak for her. Speak for me.
who's that?
My, I was just reading her messages. Like you know
Is
how
that
the show they're like, oh my speaks for Patrick. And
Yes, I remember. Yes, yes.
It kind of seemed like at the end they were trying to make Julia the secret leader of the new land.
yeah. The creepy music over it. I don't know if you guys can hear this side well, but you can hear Goat out there playing on his banjo.
Huh?
I can't hear that well at
Here,
all, actually.
we'll just go out to the fire. Oh.
One of the questions that we got was people asking where did Goat and Swoop get their name?
Oh, okay. They can't answer that, but they're all jamming right now.
Oh, well, maybe later.
How do I rotate this? Oh, well.
Are you guys at
Yeah.
Everfield right now?
So you guys got a question.
Oh, okay.
You guys got a question. Here, do we want front or you want the back here?
What?
Nice.
So the question is, where did you guys get your names from? Is the question.
None of your business.
None of your business. Yeah.
Is that your answer, Goat? None of your
Where did you get your name
business?
from?
From friends.
From friends.
Kelly says hi, goat.
From my mom.
Kelly says hi.
Who?
Kelly.
Who?
Goat to
Which
goat.
Kelly?
Florida Kelly.
What?
Oh,
Which
hi,
goat?
Kelly.
Yes, Kelly.
Oh, hi,
Okay.
Kelly. See.
So Tree and Julia should be here, and Tyler and Heather are on their way home from doing acrobatics, and then they said they would join when they get home.
Okay.
Let's look for questions. It's weird that they changed the time. I think people were expecting the time to be not affected by daylight savings.
Well, was it that last week it was a 2-hour episode, so it was from 9 to 11, and now since it's just 1 hour, it's from 10 to 11 and not 9 to 10?
I don't know, because different places said different things. Like Discovery changed the time on the Discovery app changed. It said 10 p.m. and then it said 7 p.m., which ended up being 7. And like for last week, it said that they were all going to be 2 hours, but then this week it says the rest of them are only 1 hour. It's very confusing.
Well, I know that the production company had told us originally that it was going to be 6 1-hour episodes for the season.
Plus the premiere.
And then
What?
1 hour basically means 45 minutes plus ads and stuff.
Yeah, because so the first 2 episodes was the first week, and then there's 4 more, and they're
It
1
feels
hour.
like it's half an hour plus half an hour of ads. Like it's like really a lot of ads. It's kind of wild.
Well, when people
last
stream it, they won't see all the commercials. When
Right.
people are watching it on HBO, they won't see any commercials. And when I watch shows that are supposed to be 1 hour, even on HBO, they're not 1 hour. They're like 45 minutes or 40 minutes or 38 minutes or
Yeah. Did you say that the streaming is going to start after the show is done airing?
to my understanding, it's gonna be on HBO after it goes on Discovery. After all of the episodes are done, then it's gonna stream on HBO.
Yeah. Okay. So what did you think about the I was really glad about the way they portrayed that first scene. I kind of thought they would be more, I don't
Oh,
know.
with the tornado? Yeah, they really didn't go into it any more than they did in the trailer, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was kind of hoping that they would do more of the council and the teepee. I mean, there's the time is kind of structured by councils: the council in the field, the council down in the woods, the council in the teepee, the council under the new kitchen. And
Yeah, because I think that like the one point was that like the hunting was brought up, and like Bodhi was like the one that was like gonna keep on blocking it, and like that was frustrating. So like they were bringing that up as like one thing about consensus that can happen.
I also agreed
Maybe
with
was the
Bodhi though.
point.
It wasn't just Bodhi. I kind of wish they would have showed that it wasn't just one person.
yeah,
It's
there were
not like,
several voices.
yeah. It kind of was frustrating to me that they've kind of made it seem like Bodhi was railroading Tyler, but like it wasn't just Bodhi. Like there were several of us that agreed.
In a lot of
And
the
they didn't give
narratives,
Bodhi's reasoning either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing about snares, it's like there's no reason to be like cruel about it.
Mm-hmm. It was, yeah, and Bodhi's reasoning was because of small animals we had on the property. There was chickens and roosters, dogs, and cats over at the neighbors. So,
Yeah.
you know.
And if I recall correctly, we actually didn't say no hunting. We said fish was okay, but because of the pets of the neighbors, like traps are not okay.
Yeah.
But I think we ended up agreeing that traps are okay for fish because he wanted to teach people to make traps, and he said it would work for either animals or fish. So he ended up doing the fish ones, which they show that in the trailer too.
Yeah.
I remember the compromise being that he would show people how to like make snares and stuff.
But not use them.
Right.
That makes sense.
And
They
I
might
think
still
that they
show
went
that.
off of the property to do the fishing thing.
Right.
But I think that probably was because there wasn't any fish to fish in the pond, really. They had to
And I
go
think
somewhere.
Tree was really into that too. It was like Tree and Tyler really wanted to do like a trip and go fishing somewhere,
Yes.
which is what they ended up doing. Yeah, I mean, I feel like they did a good job of showing it for the person who's is their first time of ever hearing anything like this, right? But I don't know, I feel like they could have done a better job maybe. But I think I probably would feel like that no matter what.
One thing that seems to be kind of repeated is that for every scene where people are expressing an opinion, like it's the case for Bodhi in the case of skepticism over having hunting on the land or whatever, is that there were several times that in everybody else, like they're not going to be able to go and cover everyone who's there,
Right.
cover everyone who's like ask everybody about it. They're not going to interview everybody about it, but there were like 30 or so people living on this commune, and there is a pretty good sampling of what people were thinking. Not a perfect sampling, but a reasonably good sampling. And that's one of the things that, which is a reason why I think that we're by and large seeing this as okay, this represents us somewhat okay. It's not part of why it's not what we were fearing, I guess.
Question for everyone. Do you guys know, when I first got there, I asked Bobby how many people are here? And if I recall correctly, he said 45. And I was like, that seems like a lot. Are you sure? And he's like, yeah. And I'm wondering if, do we like have a for sure number of like what was the total at the peak when the most people were there?
I made a
Well,
list. Give me a minute.
I would think over the course of the time, 45 would be pretty accurate if you were accounting all the people that came over the whole course of it.
Because most people didn't stay for the whole thing. A lot of people came and then took off or came like just for the,
One part or another.
yeah. And that's not even counting the gathering where obviously a lot more people came. Yeah. Okay. So I guess there's not really a right answer. Depends
I would
what
say
time.
the total number of people that we had on the land total on the time that we were there, not necessarily all at the same time, was 66 or 67, maybe. I have a little like
Oh wow.
I for my own reference, like I wanted to make sure that if some name came back up that I'd remember. And
Yeah.
if there's one thing that I'm good at, it's taking down names.
Okay.
um, many people say, "Oh, I'm terrible with names," but it's something that you don't really realize that you're relatively good at it until you compare yourself to other people.
Okay.
That's one thing that it took me until my mid 20s to realize, hey, maybe I am good with this. But there were going back into my records. There were about so Julia gave 12 people that were kind of like people that had been working on the project, like bringing the land trust into being. There were three more from People's Project Earth. Um, the total of people that had been consented upon in a formal process was 25, plus a few kids.
Oh.
Of those, there were 16 that made the road trip, plus a few kids. Then there were people from St. Louis that met up, or a contingent from like around Missouri that met up with us. Uh, there for a while there were about 32 people I think on land, um, plus the film crew, and the film crew was like 8 or 9, maybe 10 people. Not all at the same time though. But it adds up. It really does add up.
Yeah, it was a lot of people. You know, the
And
thing
it's
that I think
encouraging.
is it's interesting to see the way they're trying to articulate the division in like views, and they're trying to sort of like say like there here's this one like Patrick is the leader, and then it's kind of like well actually it's Julia as the leader, but like really there were like half a dozen groups with completely different views about everything, right? And like that for me is one of the things where it's like isn't like a, a cult has like one leader, right? And like a cult doesn't want people to leave. They're not telling people to leave. They're telling people they can't leave. It's like exactly the opposite. But I think that's really telling for anyone with any kind of experience in intentional communities or off grid communities or communes is like there's not like one group, there's not like two groups. It's like half a dozen groups, right? And a lot of the comments we got about the trailer were like people saying like we should kick Vibe out. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like it's totally fine to disagree. Like that people get kicked out for doing something horrible. It's not like you don't have the same view, you need to leave. Like
And
that's good.
we were concerned about it like devolving into hippie survivor, and it seems like the attitude of who are you going to kick out next is kind of goes along with that hippie survivor dynamic. And we could have done better in warding that off, I think. But something that in whatever future media opportunities that we'll all know to have. I mean, you need better cohesion to be able to control certain narratives, or nudge certain narratives.
I mean, I don't think you can, right? Like
Right.
there's so many, even in this episode, the number of like when Tree and Julia are in the van talking about wanting Naraya to leave after she called the police. That conversation, which is recorded like surreptitiously from a distance, is being cut, the words spliced together into all these different scenes. And it's them in that same spot where they were having that argument. And it's like they're not even talking about Tyler. They're talking about Naraya,
But
they're
you're already
trying to say
saying you're already recognizing that there were mics that they had, and the like
like
from
sneaky ones.
well from the first day that the film crew arrived at the garden in Tennessee, there were some people that were mic'd up and some people, well, the majority of people that weren't. Like I said that there were like 16, 20 people that made the road trip, and there were like 6 to 8 mics that were there, attachable to your clothing and stuff.
Right.
But they also have the mics that can listen very far away when
Yeah,
they're
the boom mic.
But
Yeah, the boom mic, yeah.
That I feel like the whole conversation was all spliced together with different because people are mic'd, they can take any of your audio recording and put it over anything. Because we were watching that and it was like we had the captions on and it had Swoop's name and he was like, I don't even remember having a conversation with them like that. Like it's like that's some of the stuff I just say around everybody, or
it's like a picture of Julia's van, and then it's a bunch of half of a sentence from a bunch of people put together to make it sound like they're all in there talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like nobody's in there.
Yeah, that's actually really, really clever and scary all at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
when they were looking for something, they were likely to get it. But there's a lot that they weren't looking for. There's some that they weren't looking for that they did get, and a lot that they weren't looking for that they didn't get. There's, your known unknowns and your unknown unknowns kind of.
I also think when they did the one-on-one interviews with people, some of the questions, some of the prompts that they gave, it seemed like they were trying to get you to say something that they would use for a different situation, especially when they like, imagine this hypothetical scenario. How would you react to that? And it's like, what? Right? And then you hear like when Tom was mimicking Tree and his reaction to Naraya this is something Tom brought up last week in the live stream. Like they took the like him doing the hypothetical and made it seem like that was the thing he was saying when it's like he's actually disagreeing with that. It's kind of nuts. It's sort of scary, like the way they can make it sound like you're saying exactly the opposite of what you are.
They are really good at their jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are really good at it. They gave us the best people for this series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I keep wondering what it would have been like if it would have like been on Netflix instead. Like where it's supposed to be about like here's how you build it, right? And not like here's clickbait about fighting while you build it.
Yeah. I wish they were showing more of the build, like by then, like the compost toilet was, there was different stages of it being built, and then the outdoor kitchen. They already
Yeah.
showed it, like a lot of it already done. That was like,
They also showed the toilet in the when they were showing people how to dig the trench for the toilet. There was already an outhouse that moves along the trench with a toilet seat and everything, and they showed the
yeah.
edge of it, but they're like, "Yeah, you got to squat over this trench," and it's like, "Well, we have the toilet. You don't have to do that, you know."
I think like that wasn't maybe in the first 3 days that over the trench thing was built. But
Yeah,
I think it was for the first 48 hours on the land that we didn't have that. Maybe 72 hours, maybe I don't know. But it was
There was a little bit of time because we had to do because like it took a little bit of time to build the compost toilet because first we had to do the cement part had to be done and then the building built on top of it, and it wasn't until like there was an actual seat with something cut in it and it was ready to go that we could actually use it. So I don't remember exactly how long, but it was a little bit of time,
yeah,
but we got it done.
and honestly, what we had worked pretty darn well. I was pretty impressed as someone who had used a slightly different variation of composting toilets before. Um, I thought that what the People's Project used was an improvement, a clear improvement, even.
You mean at the garden or you mean at Emberfield?
At Emberfield, but it was what I've been used to was something that would have been like manually taken out, like a 5 gallon bucket or something. Can never
Uh,
have enough 5 gallon buckets. But uh, having like a pit, and the deeper you dig the pit, the longer it lasts, and adding ash to deter flies and stuff. This is appropriate technology. This is very easily reachable appropriate technology. I'm all about it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, and it came about because we did use 5 gallon buckets at different times. At Sage Valley, we used
Uh,
5 gallon buckets, and for the
Well,
first couple of years, and it wasn't really working with like a larger group of people. It was not.
too
It was
much.
not really. It wasn't working.
how large is
Something else.
large?
Well, they would have gatherings there, so there would be like, maybe up to 100 people for a weekend.
Mhm.
So but sometimes, but that's the kind of communities that we're wanting to build, like where that could support like, more than just 15 people,
Uh,
say.
one of the big things, I mean, you mentioned appropriate technology, like the Dunbar number in cultural anthropology tells us these groups, these kinds of communities are most effective in the 30 to 50 range. And one of the things that's been really cool with all of the 6 different communities I've participated with everyone here or well, with Shine on at least, uh, has been that they're designed to accommodate that number full time, but then designed to be able to grow to accommodate a couple of hundred people for up to a couple of weeks, up to a couple of times a year. So that like 30 to 50 full time is no problem. And then like a couple hundred for a gathering is fine too. And that like lines up perfectly with what cultural anthropology tells us about like the size these groups should be most effective at. So it's interesting to see the way the appropriate technology for these groups has mirrored that research that people may or may not even know about. So it's pretty cool to see. Like at the garden, they just added more. There's now 3 of the composting toilets, and like that's plenty. Like 2 was plenty. So having 3 is like definitely more than you need, which is good because you definitely have enough.
More than you need on like a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. But for those gatherings, like one that we just had a few weeks ago, like there will be times when one is occupied, two is occupied, and you need a third.
Yeah. The so the next thing in the episode description is Tyler. As the vote approaches for Tyler, the question of whether he can stay in the commune, uh, It didn't seem like a big deal to me at the time, but it seems like they're making it a big deal in the show, right?
Yeah. I mean, to tell you the truth, it was a big deal like a few days leading up to that. But by the time we actually got into the tent, which you'll see on the next episode, it was, it's
Yeah.
fine.
It also kind of something that someone asked me at the time was like, it seemed like there was this perception that like Julia was leading this anti-Tyler movement in the group. But my experience of it was like exactly the opposite. That like Julia was this like peacemaker trying to be like, hey everyone, your concerns, like the concern that this person wants to like live here, like the person has no interest in living here, they just want to finish the project, right? And then go home to Colorado where their business is and their family and stuff, right?
Right.
And it seemed like maybe the back channeling can seem sketchy if you're not included in it, right? Like if people are
Yeah.
having great conversations about you with the intention of smoothing things out, I can totally see how that would seem like they must have malicious intent.
Yeah.
It seems like
Yeah.
that's what's being portrayed in the show.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. And in the next episode, all that comes up.
Yeah, it seems like it. It's the next episode
Yeah.
is like the vote, right?
Yeah. That's the vote.
They're keeping it secret for a reason. The
Cliffhanger.
the secret that someone says they're keeping it secret for a reason. I think maybe they mean the back channeling. So I mean, I personally I think back channeling is like if you think of like geopolitics today, like would you rather have like open conflict or like people calling each other and being like what the fuck and like figuring it out, right? And I think that's kind of the vibe that back channeling accomplishes, even for these communities. Like if
Yeah.
if you have the perspective of like I get where both people are coming from and they don't need to be fighting about this, I can like just explain like my view of the thing to both of them, and then there's not any tension or conflict. uh I can see both sides of why like people would be like that's sketchy, but also why people would be like that seems like the right call, right? I guess what do you guys think about back channeling in
I've
general?
heard
More
people
of it.
I've heard people call it like vibe checking. Like you go around everybody and kind of like check in and like get an idea of what like everybody's opinion is before we go and like all sit down and like have a counselor talk or like I don't know. It's not I think it's a pretty productive thing. It depends on the situation.
I
It's
also
something
think like if you sorry
it's something that supplements like the council. It's like the
exactly
dynamic of the council is everybody wants to get the business done and be over with it, kind of, because
Mm-hmm.
if you aren't prompt about it, it's going to drag on and on and on. And the way that you make sure that you're prepared for it is by broaching certain topics like casually with other people, just
yeah
going around, and so sometimes that means if you have the time, if you make the time, if you can find people, if you can wrangle people, then you can circulate the idea or whatever proposal before bringing it up in council, and that makes it a whole lot smoother when you do.
yeah
And
exactly
one thing that if they were to they were to have like extended footage of the whole council, you definitely would be able to see what was back channeled and what was not, and it would be very clear, I think.
yeah yeah it's hard when it's like about a specific person versus a project. I think that's when it feels sketchy to people. Like with my I don't know if they're even gonna show it, but my like trellis things that I wanted to do. I thought it would be like I mean I was asking for like $1,000 to do it, right? Uh so that's a lot. And I mean I want people to say yes. And so I think like if I bring it up, I'm like, hey, can I have $1,000 to do this art project? It's gonna be like, what? No, right? Versus if I tell people my idea, like if I talk to everyone about my idea and ask them for input, and then finally once I've talked to everyone, I officially ask, then it's like, well, of course, we've already all talked about it. We already all bought into that, right? And I think like that is easier, it's an easier sell, but I can see why if it's like about a specific person, it might feel different. But it's really the same thing, I think. Unless it's not. Like if there is some malicious intent or something, that's different. But I don't think that's what happened here. I don't think Julia had any malicious intent.
No, I don't think that either.
One of the questions in the chat is what's the difference between the kinds of topics that have to go to the council versus not going to the council? The example of the spend. So like if you want money, obviously everyone has to vote on that. But in terms of, I think one of the questions that came up at the watch party today was why did Tyler have to ask to go hunting? And like why is that something that you need council approval for? Maybe people could explain their perspective on that.
Well, because we're on a new land, we have no rules or anything in regulation on like hunting, so it's kind of like a topic where like we haven't addressed how we're going to do things here yet on this topic.
Right.
Like what's the best situation moving forward? And they showed, like Bodhi blocking it, but like Bodhi had a really good reason. There's, like we said earlier, there's the chickens, there's cats, there's dogs, there's animals we don't want to trap that could possibly get stuck in our live traps. And so,
Yeah.
but fishing was cool,
Very...
Yeah,
I definitely agree with the reasoning behind it, because when it comes to snaring and trapping, you don't get to control what you get, and that's the part that you got to take responsibility for. And if there's small animals that you don't want killed, then you can't trap.
Before you joined, we talked about the fact that actually is not, that what they showed is actually not what happened in that council. That we agreed that fishing is fine, and that you were going to show people how to make traps that could be used for fishing, and that you and me actually did go on a hunting trip, and that was all fine. Yeah. They just showed like Bodhi blocking hunting, and it's like, okay, that's totally not what happened. Yeah. Also, I agreed with Bodhi. It wasn't just Bodhi,
It wasn't. It wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that, CJ.
Yeah.
Another element of an answer to the person who asked that question in the chat was that when in a community like this, we say we have this idea of being a free land community, or free, where people are free, and that it has a couple implications. You're free to do things with regards to yourself, but there's the question of what happens with things that regard multiple people or the land. And for anything that's more than just affecting the self, that's something that you need other people's consent for. If it's just with two people, you need the two people's consent. If it's with a group of people, you need the group of people's consent. If it's something that is kind of like involves like an alteration to the land or could affect anyone, then exactly. You need everyone's. And usually we were operating on like good faith, like we trusted everybody to know what was something that would affect everyone. And thinking back on that, I think we did a pretty good job of that.
I think one of the things that's also different at this land from the previous projects that we've worked on is that there's this environmental oversight council built into the bylaws of the nonprofit that we created to own the land. And so there's a specific group of people who are consensed into that, who have to have input on any kind of change to the environment that is deemed significant. And maybe Shine can explain more about like this. Why did we do this? How does it work, and how is it different than what we've done before?
I think that, well, this is the first land in the land trust, and this like group of people would just like help steward the land, and they would have like a long-term benefit just in the way of being able to help like make sure that all of the different considerations were always, the land is governed by the people that live there, so there needs to be some type of checks and balances, and that's kind of where the environmental steward committee comes in. It's like a bridge between like maybe the board of directors and the people that are on the land.
I think your example that you gave when we were first talking about it was something like you can't come in and like build a skate park in the middle of or a parking lot in the middle of the orchard without first, like if it's a major environmental change, in addition to consensus, it needs to have consensus of the environmental stewardship committee, which by the way includes neighbors who are trusted friends, you know, who
Mhm.
have another different kind of stake in the land in terms of, you know, how it should be, how it should change in major ways. I thought that was really interesting to include the neighbors in that process.
As I recall, as we were forming the Environmental Stewardship Committee, one of the topics that was one of the reasons that, or part of the reasons of making it, and one of the questions that we wanted to address was that soil compaction, especially by vehicles, because we'd just come in with a whole bunch of big vehicles, buses, vans, heavy vehicles that can compact soil a whole lot more than just people walking could. And so we wanted to concentrate those onto a small area so that we would have a minimal long-term disruption of stuff. We didn't want to just have people driving every vehicle anywhere, because that would have resulted in a whole lot of the land on our plot that was compacted.
Yeah,
So
compacted land doesn't produce, we can't grow stuff on it.
it affects
Yeah.
some qualities of the soil. It can affect the soil seed bank. It can affect the water and air permeation. But it is one issue that kind of stands in, or is this like a starting point for addressing many other issues? And that was a pretty good one to start out on.
Yeah. Someone asked in the chat, do all plants have to be edible? Can you grow flowers, or is that frivolous? I mean, I know I planted lots of things that flower. All fruits flower, for example. Most vegetables do. Wildflowers are obviously an important part of any environment in supporting local pollinators, especially. Um, Personally, I tried dragon fruits, a bunch of different kinds of berries, and tomatoes, and sugar snap peas. I know we also did orchards and stuff. What are some examples of things you guys planted?
Yeah, we'd plant like fruit and nut and like flowers, like wildflowers. There's like a rudbeckia. We also planted like natives, like sunchokes or hog peanuts, and trying to think what else that was.
I really want to grow sunchokes. I haven't grown those yet.
Yeah, we actually just got gifted some red sunchokes to be planted, so the tubers are red.
Nice.
So we'll have two varieties out here now. And yeah, flowers are great for pollinators, but also majority of like the prairie up here, there's lots of like goldenrod, and there's milkweeds, and there's different various prairie like black-eyed Susans that are already like throughout the property. So we really don't have to like plant those or add those, but there's like bee balm that's already like naturally occurring out here.
And this is land that was not previously developed. So it's a large piece of land that has always been wild.
Yeah. I think it was once in the past old cow pasture land, but or like grazing land. But other than that, it's just a big kind of like prairie on top of this hill. So it gets very windy. Unless you're in the trees.
Jazz is mentioning lots of medicinal plants that were also planted, echinacea and St. John's, and someone's asking how much do we spend when we buy land like this? So this is the most expensive land that we've bought. I think the cheapest land that we bought was like 5,000 for a much smaller piece of land. So like it ranges, you know, whatever is appropriate for what you're trying to do. So in this case, it's a large land that's intended to be a large community that can produce food for a bunch of people, where people can live full time if they want. But you can also do smaller lands that are more like seasonal for visiting, like the land that we did in Florida. where like you wouldn't want to be there most of the year. It would be gross. But same goes for, up north. You don't want to be there in the winter necessarily. So it's good to have both. And the size and the cost, it just depends on what you're trying to do.
A lot of what we were looking into was 50K to 100K in like in the planning process, and this happened over the course of several months. But that was like our basic range, and your mileage may vary based on what your resources are and where you're looking exactly. There are some places where land is a lot more expensive. There are some places where land is cheaper. We were looking at a lot of places where land was cheaper. We were thinking of looking into like the Asheville area in Western North Carolina, but that ended up being like land ended up being really expensive there. And so that was one reason why we were looking towards Missouri instead.
Something else to keep in mind.
Another reason was because it's good for building off-grid communities.
Yeah, exactly. Just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's a good place to buy if you're trying to build something like this, because a lot of places are cheap because you can't build anything, or the rules are really restrictive, or the costs are extremely high. Like in Southern Florida, there are places where you could be required to get mortgage insurance in excess of $100,000 a year if you buy land there. So like definitely check that kind of stuff. The best way to tell is if people are already doing it in that area and talk to them about what it's like. And proximity to the Amish is huge because building codes are much more relaxed in Amish country because it's some people have been living like this for centuries there, So lots of variables. It's not just the price.
Yeah, states with good homestead laws, ones that like no restricting on buildings, just very homestead friendly, are good places to look. Which like another good example is the community Dancing Rabbit. They're originally a group that came from the West Coast and bought land in Missouri because they could get like larger amount of land that was like good, buildable, like no restrictions, and they could build the size community that they like dreamed of, or wanted, with enough space to like house as many as they could, in their dream or their vision.
And you can like, I've had a lot of people ask if that's where we are. That's not where we are.
No. They're friends though, but
there was a connection that was thinking about coming into the project. I was a little bummed that they weren't able to, but there's the network keeps on going, and there'll be more chances of success.
More is more.
Yeah, there's a book. I believe it's called like building. I can't remember exactly the title. It's about building eco villages, and Dancing Rabbit. I believe are like the main authors on it, or like creators of the book.
What's that called?
You can see the whole journey. Let me look it up. I can't remember right now.
Yeah.
Give me a second. Yeah.
One of the other questions was, how are we fundraising for the land projects that we're doing? So for this one, it was the condition of doing the TV show that they would have to pay for everything. But
not everything, but
they sure, 99% of it.
Yeah. Not 99%.
Well, the land and the materials and the tools, right? We paid for, I think, the nonprofit creation. I heard
there was a certain weekly amount that was involved that was stipulated, but it wasn't huge. I recall it being something on the scale of 2,000 or something for each week, ish.
And then obviously the actors got paid.
But none of the people, like the people that were the actors, were the 6 people that came to visit the community. Not any of the people that were there building the community.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, myself and the other cast members were paid, and I think Tree was also paid.
Yeah, and then Tree donated that. That's the money that's what Tempo is talking about.
Oh, okay.
Because then that was donated back to the project, and we had that as another amount that we could use to do the project.
I remember when one of the first conversations when I got there, Tree's like, CJ, can you explain what is withholding? He's like, I never had a job before. I'm like, just put two. I don't know. Nobody really knows how it works. We just hope we get it right. But in the past, when we've fundraised for these projects, it's been a mix of like for the Pirates Cove property, if I recall correctly, we did the GoFundMe. There were a few large donors, but that was a minority of the money raised. The average donation, the median, was like $7.50 or something. So it really is these small, like $1 and $2 donations from regular people that make the difference, that really make it possible to do this. It's not like, I mean, even in the case of Discovery Channel, like this is just one out of 6 that I've participated in. So it really is the small $1 and $2 donations that really make a difference for these projects.
What if instead of chipping in,
It seems like we couldn't do it without both. I mean, enough people do put $2 together, but it also the people that were able to put in large amounts of money like made it possible also just as much as people that put in small amounts. Like everything just like everyone doing it together is the thing that made the difference.
Bree, you have your government name on your name. Also, what is that
so
picture?
I thought, what if instead
Bro.
of chipping in, $27 to some just social democrat candidate who's not going to go very far, instead we chipped in those $27 to free land communities? Because a couple million people doing that, you'd have a whole lot of free land communities, and you'd have something to point to. You'd have some progression that would be definitely making people's lives better, that you could point to and say, we did this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Isn't there
Okay, so
the
I
$2
got the clip.
revolution going on? Is that still going on?
It's always
Yes.
going on.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I'm not sure if it's
Abi,
I think they're still setting up the
Abi, do you? No, we still. Well, the link is on the People's Project Earth.org. You can sign up for the $2 revolution right now. You can do it. It can be $2 a week, $2 a month, $2 a year. Uh,
and the idea is
yeah,
that people
I
would
think.
subscribe to pay a couple of bucks a month, and that money would go to buying new land that would be set
Yeah,
as
and
free
that goes
community.
directly into the land fund.
Yeah. So it's a restricted donation that only goes to buying land for new free communities for people.
Yes.
Yeah. And you can subscribe to pay however much you want every month, but the ask is $2 a month.
And we did
Yeah.
have a few donors that did specify that they want their donation to only be used specifically towards the free land, toward buying land for the free land communities, rather than general expenses.
Yeah. My understanding was that the whole 2DR is restricted.
Yeah, if you're giving if the money is given to the $2 revolution, then all that money goes towards
I'm in.
land specifically.
Hello.
Welcome.
We're talking about the $2 revolution.
I'm on it, kids. It's amazing, right? For only $2 a month, you can actually have access to land. Like sometimes you're poor, sometimes you need money, and you can't buy land. So it's a great model. I'm advertising.
And the difference with the advantage to donating together to buy land versus buying land yourself is that we have experience with doing land trusts, which are contracts about how the land can be used safely and what sorts of things are not okay. And those kinds of community agreements enable these projects to succeed on a level that they generally don't if it's someone trying to start something brand new without a ton of experience. And then you also get this community and network of people who come through and pitch in and do projects together. And
why is it perpetually upside down?
it keeps turning upside down. That's so weird.
The phone. They're passing a phone.
but it keeps flipping when they turn it the
We
right way.
tested out our equipment here. There's some technical difficulties.
Yeah, it's so weird.
But we're still split. We're still on the other side.
Oh, there you go. You had it for a second.
But I can talk about that shit. I can talk about it.
So you can really talk about that shit.
Someone said, have any of these communities drawn negative attention from the powers that be and been shut down? None of the ones that we've started or worked on. I'm sure things like that have happened in the world, but these are all thriving today. All the ones that we've all worked on and started together. Jazz points out a lot of people contributed their own money to pay for materials and tools and stuff for the new land project. Yeah, I mean, I definitely did that too. So
Yeah, I think I definitely did too. I think everybody did to their best of their abilities, put everything that they had into the project that they could. Because just getting stuff there ahead of time and going and looking at land and making the trips for all the supplies, like all of that was all everyone working together to make it happen however we needed to and pay for however we could.
I would say too is, you take out your tools or things and it just automatically becomes community sometimes. Like some things just, if you take it out and you leave it out, like everybody's going to use it. And one day, like it's like, all right, it's just how it is. The machete's over there today.
yeah.
Where is that? I don't know. Someone else used it. We'll find it later,
Yeah, there's kind of a I don't know. We have this no ground scores rule, but there's kind of like a I don't know community ground score that's assumed if you leave things around, suddenly it belongs to the community.
What do you mean by ground scores? I noticed that it was in like the intro, but I'd actually never heard that term.
Yeah, it's one of
Yeah, I don't
the
even know where they got that thing from. Like they wrote it up themselves or something. I don't know. They used like the guidelines from the garden, but no no ground scores is like if you find something like and you like it, you can't just keep it. You can't just keep it because you found it on the ground or like
like if you're at a festival,
it probably belongs to somebody, not and maybe it doesn't, maybe in the end you could have it, but it's like whose is this? Like you've got to find out or put it in lost and found or something.
Yeah, like if you're at a festival and you find some cool sunglasses on the ground, that's a ground score because obviously you're never going to figure out whose those are. But it's not the same if you're in a community. Like they belong to someone. You can't just keep them.
Fine, just keep us.
But I will say though,
somebody leaves the phone recording people without their consent, then.
I think I noticed in community is people are like, bring your own bliss, bring your own bliss to the kitchen. But I've gotten to a point where I'm like, I'm tired of bringing my bliss to the kitchen because I'll bring it, I'll wash it, or maybe I'll set it down and somebody else will pick it up and wash it and use it, and then it's gone.
What does it mean? What does it mean? Bring your own what?
Bring your own bliss,
your own bliss.
eating utensil, like your own bowl, your own plate, and like you really have to like keep a handle on it. Like you have, it needs to be able to attach to your body so that you don't it doesn't end up in the community pool of dishes because. And then so there's like all dishes are community.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely happened to me a couple of times with the dishware.
Yeah. People are like, oh, if everyone brought their own bliss, the dishes won't be so bad. Like, no, it doesn't work. Like,
but like also that's not malicious. Like, there's a ton of dishes in the kitchen that anyone can use, and probably people left all of them somewhere.
Yeah, so dishes just become communal.
It's the same at Burning Man. Like,
don't bring out your Hello Kitty plate.
Yeah. Or do, but just be prepared to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Bring 2 of them.
Yeah.
People are talking in the chat about the history of sometimes an example of communities that don't work out and get shut down and leave bad taste in people's mouths include some of the past rainbow gatherings where there's been like a trashing of the forest or the outside communities. I should say I've never been to Rainbow. I have no experience with Rainbow, but that is one of the criticisms that sometimes is offered. It's generally offered without the caveat that it's like tens of thousands of people there, and like a few of them may do that, and kind of everyone gets blamed for it. You know,
I can say the first rainbow I ever went to, that was the Nationals, was the Oregon gathering in 2017. And first time I ever went, I stayed behind and did cleanup. Like that's like a thing at Rainbow where like people will continue staying past the date of the gathering and make sure the woods is cleaned up and renaturalized and like there's no evidence that like there's a bunch of people gathered. Like they'll disassemble all the furniture and kitchens and things that people make. All the trash gets out, it all gets sorted, and it's a pretty beautiful process to see. And then whoever's like left, people that don't have rides or maybe they do, like they all kind of like caravan together or like road trip out, and everybody, like no one's left behind in the woods either. Like everybody has a way out, which is pretty sweet.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, Jazz points out that it's much more common not to have these kinds of problems in community, but on the road between communities where there like problems come up and people get hassled or people get in trouble, and that kind of stuff is more common on the road than in the community.
I also will say is how surprised I'm at sometimes at the trash that I clean up out of the woods. Like during that rainbow, like if you ever go to a nationals, you have to carry all your stuff that you're going to be camping with and like living with on your back or like in a cart down a trail a mile or two. And so like some of the things out there, I'm like, who brought carpet in the woods? You know, like who dragged this out here and
Yeah,
left it for the rest of us to clean up, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
You know, sometimes elders maybe they'll leave their poop buckets, and you're like, lovely.
Uh,
And you have to take them out of the woods because you know some people can't carry everything out. I get it, and they're not going to all poop in a hole. So
yeah.
the beauty of it all.
It's kind of similar at Burning Man. A lot of times, like, if you have 80,000 people show up to build a city together and then take it apart. But, like, at the event, there are a lot of people who are really committed to making sure that no trace is left. But then on the way out, you know, people like 80,000 people passing through half a dozen small towns tend to kind of like trash them. And it sort of becomes the like, whose job is that? Like, how do we fix that? How do we address that? It's tough because it's like, how would you even do that? You know, at some point, it's incumbent upon the people who are being a problem to stop being a problem. And that's another benefit of community where it's like you see all the people, you see what their impact is on each other and on the land, and you're able to address it directly without just wondering who did that, right? Yeah, that's a good point. Jazz could not get connected, but leaving a lot of good comments in the chat. And yeah, like I don't know if you guys saw the video, but Tree and Julia were just at a rainbow in like Nepal, like rural, like remote mountain valley, and they have to like carry everything in. And it like the pictures are beautiful, but it's like, oh my God, that's what altitude is that? That's quite the hike, you know. I've never done anything like that.
Yeah, and then you'd be so out of breath because you're like carrying stuff high altitude, or you have to cook at high altitude, so like
Right.
things take longer, right, Tyler?
What was that? My wrist string
High
shut.
altitude cooking. I feel like you would know because you're in Colorado. Like, it takes longer to cook at high altitude, right?
It is, everything takes so much longer up here, especially where we just moved. In Colorado Springs, it's around 6,200 feet
Mhm.
in elevation, and then up here, I think we're like 8,500 or 9,000.
There's
Oh.
lots of
Yeah, and
Wow.
just that short amount of distance, it doesn't sound very much, but makes a huge difference, especially
How
because Heather
cold
is.
is it there?
It literally varies. It's so the weather here is super bipolar. It just doesn't know if it wants to be hot or dumps 5 inches of snow on us.
Wow. You already getting
Six
And then
thousand
snow?
like
feet is about a
we'll
mile.
we'll have like 2 feet of snow and it'll be gone in a few days.
Wow,
Nice.
your weather forecast there for this week is pretty nuts.
yeah.
Yeah, I think Wednesday it's like 70, and then all of a sudden like 6 inches
16.
of snow.
Yeah. And then back to 70.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. It doesn't know what it wants. It
That's
doesn't know.
it's scary because that's why crops fail. Like that's one of
Yes.
the reasons why we have
And
so
my
many
and my
crop
and the
failures.
flowers on my porch.
Yeah, yeah. They try too soon and then they freeze and die and then
Yeah.
don't have any crops this year. You know, it's nuts. And that's why all of the like if you go to the grocery store, most of the foods that you're gonna see are like imported from like Peru, elsewhere where like they're able to grow
Right.
stuff because like for example, all the blueberries in America died this year, like early. None of them made it to harvest. A lot of crops are that way. It's scary because it's like that's only gonna get worse.
Our fruit is so international.
Yeah.
It travels more than I do.
But there's
Yeah.
also there are techniques that you can use to extend your growing season. One technique is high tunnels. You can literally just take fabric and have little hoops, string the fabric over the hoops, weight it down with bricks.
Yeah.
That's a really easy way to let light in, to let heat in, and be a windbreak for your crops. I've seen, in fact, I worked at a farm that did that for their pepper plants and
Oh,
got an extra 2 months, maybe even 3 months out of their growing season for it.
Wow.
Um,
That's pretty big.
and you can do that with a whole lot of plants. Another thing that was widely used is fruit walls. Like you just in many medieval and Renaissance era towns and even cities, even on the outskirts of big cities, you'd have all these networks of walls and just brick walls that their main purpose would be soaking up the sun.
yeah.
And because they would take longer to heat up, and then they'd be more massive than much more massive, they'd have more mass in the air. And so they would disperse their heat over a longer period of time. You'd have a
Yeah.
microclimate around that wall and lower wind. So you'd be able to grow like grapes at much higher latitudes than you normally would.
Yeah.
Some people
Yeah,
even went further.
thermal mass.
Mhm. Some people went even further and thought, well, what if you put like a glass pane on top of this? Like no heating or anything, like
Full
no,
frames.
not burning anything for heat, but just using the sun. And they were able to even grow pineapples, which are usually a tropical plant in Europe. Like they're like
Yeah.
competitions of let's see who can grow the best pineapples in Europe,
Actually, they
Northern
have those
Europe.
at the garden. Yeah.
You
Yeah, this
y'all
the
grow a
Soviet
pineapple at the garden?
they have cold frames. The like window with the that you put on the ground, and then you have like plants that are underneath it. So
Oh,
it's like
okay.
a little tiny greenhouse for one plant.
Right.
The Soviets actually did that though, and they dug these big trenches and covered them with glass, and they were able to grow citrus in Siberia, which cannot freeze ever, or it will die. And they were growing it when in 30 below, and they were actually able to be one of the world's largest exporters of citrus doing that. So like no matter where you are, like there
Wow.
are currently people growing bananas in the snow in Taos in greenhouses that are really well insulated with multiple layers of like they're using 2x6s with like clear plastic stapled across both sides. And that makes it like uncomfortably warm inside to the point where you have to open a window, even in the snow. And they're growing bananas like that in the snow.
That's crazy.
It's just a question of like what's the appropriate technology for wherever you are, you know. The Soviets even did nuclear powered greenhouses much further north where there was no way you
Of
would have
course.
enough sun, even with greenhouses that are, you know, covered with glass in the ground. It's not enough. So they were like heated and lit with nuclear power plants in the Arctic to grow citrus. It did not break even. It was not a good business decision, obviously, but it's totally possible, just depending on how much power you want to put into it. You can grow pretty much anything, pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know about that, about the Soviets.
People are asking about where are the others. So I think Tree and Julia are having Zoom difficulties.
Yeah.
Their Zoom had the zoomies.
There'll probably be a different group of people on every week, and maybe everyone will be on once at least.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool to see everyone.
The other thing is like this group is not like organized hierarchically, right? Chaos is the MO. So we had 10 different live streams going on day one.
Organized chaos.
I don't know if I would call it organized. It's more like we
Just
have
chaos.
throw everything at the wall and some of it will stick.
Some
just
people
like
have their
vibing.
reasons for being independent, doing their own stream,
Yeah. Yeah, and we actually so this is a strategy in permaculture called species packing, right? Like when we built these hoop trellises to see, like there were lots of things that we were interested in growing. It wasn't clear that they would grow there. Not all of us had experience with that latitude, and so you just plant everything and see what works, you know. So like I planted dragon fruit.
That's a really good idea.
It's not clear that those will survive, but maybe.
Yeah.
That's part of the strategy the Soviets used.
So stuff that you planted, CJ, that did grow was we managed to save those tomatoes by the trellises and keep them alive.
Cool.
We just like filled in the dirt where like you made a drain off at first because it was really rainy and like soaky for a while, and then it just went total like dry for like weeks, you know, at one point. At the beginning at least, it was like, whoa, it's like we were having to like water everything and like be on it. And but tomatoes grew, there was marigolds, and a couple of the blue corn made it.
Oh wow, cool.
That I salvaged out of your tray, that like some that you didn't get out and they still sprouted.
Oh wow, cool.
So yeah, like there was like a mix of different things that you planted and it grew, and it was like cool. Like, you know, we were eating your like little orange cherry tomatoes, and there's like these red ones in it. So they're the first tomatoes we got to eat. So because they were in the ground first, you know. Which is cool.
Did the sugar snap peas make it?
I think a couple of them did. Yeah. And then we planted it probably, I think, in the garden or with the other peas that we had growing.
Yeah. One of the strategies that the Soviets used to find cultivars that would survive in those greenhouses is that they would plant a huge number of seeds slightly further north than what they would normally survive at. And then whichever ones made it, they would interbreed those, get a bunch more and do it again, and keep doing that and moving further north with these species that they were creating through this, like, you know, indirect genetic engineering of finding the mix of them that would be able to survive. And they also selected for plants that would stay low on the ground instead of growing very tall, which keeps them warmer. So like species packing is a good strategy for that reason, because like maybe dragon fruits generally would not do well in that latitude, but like if you plant 1,000 of them, probably a couple of them will be okay. And now you have a new cultivar, you have a new kind of dragon fruit that's able to survive there.
It's a higher risk, lower chance of success, but when it succeeds, you're going to get further.
Yeah. Especially if you plant 1,000, right? Expect
because you don't know which is going to work and which is not.
Yeah. There's this really cool magazine called Low Tech Magazine, and it's all about stuff like that. That's where I learned about the Soviet agriculture in the Arctic. What were you saying, Kelly?
I was just saying that's so interesting.
Yeah,
I never thought about that. That just throw just a giant number at things, and then a couple of them are going to work eventually.
yeah. That's
And
how you
that's all
get a
about
new.
like superior genetics for that specific purpose of like surviving at a higher altitude or a colder temperature. And then just finding those and then interbreeding those together, and then you just keep doing that over and over again until you have this really, really good crop that you want.
Yeah, and that's how all cultivars happen. That like every different kind that isn't genetically engineered. That's how they did it.
That's really cool.
Let's see. Someone said that's how they won World War II. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if citrus did it, but that it's their ingenuity that led the Soviets to win World War II.
And the massive amount of numbers that they threw at it.
Yeah, like 100 times as many people as the U.S. that fought. That's pretty nuts.
Yeah, the amount of Russians that actually died in World War II is staggering.
50 times the number of Americans that did, and something like 10 times the number of British that did, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny when you see those shirts that says America back-to-back World War champs, and it's like we were barely involved.
We
Yeah.
wouldn't like to hear who's back-to-back Southeast Asian War champs. Actually, back-to-back-to-back? Yeah, yeah. That being the Vietnamese.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The French, the Americans, the Cambodians, and I guess the Chinese, maybe?
So the next thing on the the next thing on the episode description was Oak has trouble fitting in. I thought it was so fucked up the way they depicted Jag. And her, speaking in tongues. It's like
Oh, yeah.
this is not, what did he call her? A hippie witch. Like this is an indigenous
Witch
person
doctor.
who has this spiritual relationship with language in a different way. And like how are you like mocking that and calling her names? And like this is someone who's trying to help you, who you've asked to try to help you in this way. And then you're gonna like sit there mocking them and calling it bullshit. It's like, what the fuck? How do you act like that?
There's also the tug over Christianity, and I think he
Yeah.
wasn't quite accurate with that because
Yeah.
there is a big tradition of in
Glossolalia.
Catholic faiths, nothing
Yeah.
against them, but they do have like a gift of the Holy Spirit
It's
of
a fruit of the
speaking in
spirit.
tongues.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
something that very much does exist, and there are a lot of Pentecostals in the South, so I think he was
Yeah.
influenced. I mean, they're all over the country, but the South has a higher concentration of them,
It's
and
it's wild to me how ignorant of Christianity Christians are. Like it's wild to me. Like not only is it a fruit of the spirit, but it's also like the Pentecost. Like that's the whole point of the Pentecost, right? It's like people speaking in tongues. It's like that religion is wild.
different denominations will treat that differently. I mean,
Sure.
theologically, you won't have everybody saying this is something that we'll expect to be imitated, but some will.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a broad variety, and
But every single religious tradition in the world has speaking in tongues, has glossolalia. It's like a whole topic of research and like there are like neuroscientists who specialize in religious glossolalia and speaking in tongues and like put people in fMRI scans and like watch what the brain is doing. It's like a whole topic of study that's really interesting. And it's definitely a thing in Christianity. It's a thing in like every major religion, including like, obviously indigenous wisdom traditions. Yeah, that pissed me off.
another thing that could be said about this is there's a big role of the placebo effect. Like someone
Yeah,
who's going into this thinking, oh, these are just a bunch of hippies. I'm not sure they're gonna be able to do anything for me. They're probably not going to have as much, or they're not going to be influenced as much, or they're not going to be
yeah,
able to get as much out of it to something that they're going in thinking no to begin with. And that
Because you
kind of seems
swapped
like
her out for some dude with a cowboy hat and a rattlesnake doing the exact same shit, and he's gonna be like, "This guy changed my life."
I
That's what
think that they
Pentecostal
wanted
churches
it
are like.
to look weird, and it looked weird.
Yeah, yeah, pissed me off. That guy. I wish they would have showed his first thing that he asked all of us at the first council that he attended.
so it's kind of funny that a little
Yeah,
bit
maybe it might be
karmic.
in there.
So a little bit of lore. So during what was it? Episode 2, when as Ty Oak was coming in and he's kind of stuck at the bottom. Filming paused for a moment when there was when Jag and I came back to the commune in a vehicle, and we actually we had fermented things with us, and so it was the beer run coming back interrupting Ty Oak's introduction scene.
Oh,
And as we were going down, we were like, "Oh, we don't want to offend him. Are we ruining the scene?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Are we gonna get in the film crew's way? Are we gonna ruin everyone's day?"
It's hard for me with him, like to separate. It's with some of them, it's clear that a lot of the experiences they were having were genuine. Obviously, with Tyler, it's clear to me that a lot of the experience Tyler was having was genuine, especially having gotten to know Tyler. And I think for Tashila too, you know. But
Yeah.
with Oak, I have absolutely no sense that a single word of his experience is real. Like it seems very clear to me that he's just an actor there to create drama and get his paycheck and go home.
I would disagree. And I have a personal experience that leads me to that, and that is some you'll have and I think I mentioned this to a B in the moment. One day, this is like late in April, maybe, and that was people aren't on camera all the time. And people had mentioned that they could hear Tyoke on like when he was talking on the phone in his tent or something. And
Really loud.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I don't think that was something. I'm pretty sure that the film crew took their mics off. They did take the mics off at the end of the day. And so there's a life that goes on at the commune once all the cameras are out and once all the
Right.
mics are off.
Yes, definitely.
And there was a time when I had gone back to the bus that we were using for charging, Shine's bus. And I was placing a call to some of my friends back in Carbondale, and I could hear intermittently Ty Oak a little ways away, and I was having a very hopeful, a very positive conversation, and he seemed to be very irritated about a lot of things. And
Yeah.
so I think that's just kind of I think that's a persistent kind of personality trait. It's really
Yeah.
hard to fake who you are for an extended period of time. Like for a couple hours,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. For a day or two, okay. For more than that, I think it's hard. It takes a
Yeah.
lot of skill to do, and I don't know.
Right. One of the things that he was constantly yelling on the phone about passive aggressively in front of everyone is like he should be in a hotel and they should be driving him out here to film his scenes, and then he shouldn't have to actually stay in the tent, and that should just be for the show, you know. And he's like, wow, girl, why are you here?
There also there was like a list of people that were like prospective guests, I guess,
Yeah.
that many people in the People's Project that had been consented on got to see, like in the dialogue with
Oh,
the film crew
okay.
or the film company. And there are a couple that we were actually really eager, one example was Tashila. Everyone
Yeah.
was interested in meeting Tashila like months in advance. For
Yeah.
example. And that was just the way the description was presented. The
The
profile.
polyamorous trucker. Like, wow, that's
Yeah,
cool.
everybody wanted to meet the poly trucker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Ty Oak was not someone who was on that list, and
Oh,
apparently there were some people that were switched out, and apparently they made a couple substitutions, but who knows?
one of the things that kind of freaked me out early on when I was like, wait, what? Was one of the executive producers was like, yeah, we have like complete psychological profiles on everyone, and that's how we selected who we were gonna pick to come in and play the roles. And we're like, what? Like what were you like looking for? And how is Oak what you were looking for? Right? Like I think yeah, I heard some stories about the process of them meeting, like the people meeting each other, and like some of them it was like, oh, this person seems really cool, but they like weren't unhinged enough in some specific way to merit coming on. And it's just like the fact that the first thing he said at his first council was like, I want to paint Confederate flags on everything. And it's like, no, dude, what the fuck? Like, what? How are you coming into like a commune and thinking Confederate flags? You
Yeah,
know?
read the room, buddy.
Yeah. Like, yeah, it's wild. I kind of wonder, obviously, the episode descriptions seem to imply that he's going to continue butting heads with everyone and then like storm off in some kind of tantrum. Obviously, he doesn't make it to the end. And the Valley Girl thing was so cringy. Like her little thing with the faces where it's got all the eyelashes on it, and she's like got her nails, and she's like, I don't know if this is too many fake eyelashes to bring to the forest. And it's like, what?
But the thing is, like, that's 100% her.
I loved it. I loved her.
I loved
I
it
loved her. I
Yeah.
loved
because it's
her.
100% authentic Jessica.
I was like, I just did not even know.
But also, she was very open-minded, like remarkably
She
open-minded. She
was.
surprised everyone. She was one of the people that
Yes.
we had like profiles were shared, and people were maybe thinking, I wonder why this was a choice. But
Yeah.
in retrospect, I mean, she fit in great. She made
Yeah.
a really good effort, and there's a lot that she ended up bringing. Also, she is more than just a hero. She's a union woman. I wanted to say that.
Oh, I didn't know that. What is her trade?
Hospitality,
Oh,
restaurant
Yeah,
industry.
she's a server.
I didn't know there was a union for that. That's cool.
Either Unite here or can't remember.
Huh? Cool. Well, in that case, I'm on board. Yeah, it seems so like
Everybody's different. Everybody's different.
There's power in a union.
yeah, I'm not saying like don't bring people like that. I'm saying if they're making a TV show about like what this is like, I kind of get the idea of like pick someone who really doesn't seem like they would fit and then see if they do, you know. And that was how people described Oak at first, was like that's the feeling is like if this guy can do it, anybody can do it.
And that's like the same principle behind species packing, kind of, when you think about it. Like
Oh
species
yeah.
packing, but for characters.
Character pack.
See if your roots grow.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean that makes sense. I guess I don't like her comments in the first trailers about like it seemed like her conclusion was negative. Like her feeling about us was negative, and maybe that's just the way they're editing it, but like that was my impression of like bottom line for her based on the trailers. I guess we'll see.
Because it seemed like she didn't have any friction with like anyone there.
No.
That was after I took off. That was like much later, I think. No. There was like something. There was a gathering at the garden, right? That a bunch of people
Yeah.
went to. I think I went like to the end of that, and then I went home.
Oh
That
yeah,
was
that's
the
right. You
reason
did.
why Patrick left.
The other thing is, so they say Jessica and Tashila arrived at the same time, but obviously they arrived like a month apart. It's interesting to see the Tree pointed out in their new podcast the most Tarantino breaking aspect is the state of construction of the TP. It very clearly becomes constructed and deconstructed 20 times as they jump back and forth between the future and the past. And it's like that's the evidence for people that don't believe us. That like these things did not happen in this order. You know?
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope they show like more of how the TP how that plays out and stuff, you know. No spoilers.
I don't know what.
Huh.
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, you'll find out.
Did you guys read the descriptions of the rest of the episodes?
Mm-mm. Are they done? All 6?
5 are.
Okay.
I think there's one more that they haven't posted yet.
Yes. I know that to be a fact.
The next one is about you take over for a leader from presumably Julia. You take over her job and confront Tyler.
I almost had water come out my nose when I first read that. It's like, when did I sign up for that?
I know Heather commented, "My husband is not organized enough for that."
That's a fact.
I think
I'm ambitious, but not organized enough to do anything with multiple people.
Yeah. And
I can't deny that
You
at
can't
all.
keep your own shit together, much less other people's shit.
I know. Oh, here's Heather.
Hi, Heather. And then Jessica goes dumpster diving. So that'll be interesting.
No, because I think they should be getting, because right now they're still finishing 6.
Oh, it's not done yet.
No. So that's where they're like, we need to hurry up and get done because it's coming up in a few weeks. That I couldn't do a job like that. You gotta edit. Oh, this project I gotta do. It's just, for national television globally.
Yeah. Then it's interesting to try to guess like how it's gonna get to the description that they have, because then the next one says like it splits into 2 groups. There's like a Tree group and a Patrick group, but like he's not even there anymore. So it's like how are we retconning that about like whether or not to have a party? But it's like we always have a gathering at the end of all of these projects.
That's also
Patrick came back.
Yeah, Patrick came back.
But like later, like it wasn't like there wasn't this ongoing conflict between the 2 of them, and he hasn't left in the story.
I think they're gonna play off of the fact that Tree has talked about perpetual party culture, and Patrick not thinking that's conducive to long-term community health. And I think that the sexy party is what they're gonna play that off of. Like Patrick didn't want to happen, but Tree's like, I put my foot down and I'm having this party.
And it wasn't just Patrick, and it wasn't just Tree. It was lots of people. And in fact, it's a little bit reductionist to call it in 2 camps.
Okay,
but those were.
So they're having a sexy party.
Yeah.
Sexy with a Y.
Okay, so they asked me a bunch of questions about the fairies and sex parties.
No, sexy parties, not sex parties. In case you're getting too.
They have a bunch of quotes from me about sex parties related to the fairies. So maybe they're gonna.
Oh, you mean the production company has a whole bunch of quotes? Yeah. So they might be in there.
They're gonna make it. So I was talking about the.
They might.
Yeah, probably.
Great. Well, okay, whatever.
DJ wasn't even there. What do you mean?
I left. Yeah.
It would have been better with you. Even better.
Yeah.
What? Well, it was it different than any other party that happens there?
It had light. It had a rave
What for breakfast?
vibe. I don't
Oh,
know.
What's for
There were
breakfast?
some.
They surrounded the whole
Okay.
everybody with vans and put
Guys,
lights
it's
on the
what's for
vans,
breakfast?
and then we had a big bonfire,
Can I
There
go
was
see
cake.
and they were
There
playing like
was
EDM music, and then they
There
realized they don't
was
have a
cake.
license for
There
that music.
was cake.
there was
Yeah,
vegan
there was
and gluten-free
cake.
cake for Jag.
Yeah, it was someone's birthday. I
oh,
think it was
Yeah,
Jag's
like
birthday.
Laura's.
that's nice. Okay, Julia wants to join now. Send her the link. Yeah, so just so everyone is aware, it's a recurring link, so it's the same link for all of them.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to stay on the call until the next one.
All right, y'all. I gotta get up early and keep on working on this tiny home.
Okay, have fun.
I will try.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna hop off
Have a good
too.
night.
Okay.
Guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Night.
Bye, Heather. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Julia is jumping on.
Bye.
So the other thing on the next episode description, it says Tree is going to throw a party against Patrick's wishes.
His wishes.
It's like, what?
This is one thing where it's one dynamic between people that you kind of see it repeated, but not quite in the same way. Again, there's at this point there were probably about close to 50 people on the land, like in the upper 40s or so, with all the people that we had invited, maybe including a neighbor or two, sometimes and including the film crew and stuff. And there were some people that were there later on, like after the spring gathering. Some people came back to the new land, or came up to the new land, that didn't go there in the first place. Some people didn't come back that had gone down. And so there's a variety of interactions that are happening over the course. So not each one is going to be seen and played out, but there is going to be dynamics that sort of have a center of mass around, like vaguely around this dynamic of one character wanting to have like an artistic expression, and people let it all hang out and stuff. And one other character kind of being in opposition to that, saying we want something that is stable and kind of domestic, sort of. And just because there are these two camps doesn't mean that everyone fits neatly into them. It doesn't mean that it doesn't even mean that there aren't contentions between people within that same framework.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Julia.
I finally made it onto the Zoom. It's been really hard for me to get on here.
Welcome.
Sorry, I don't know what you
Fire
guys
off.
have been talking about.
We're just going over the episode descriptions and trying to guess what's going to happen.
Wasn't it crazy how tonight the episode ended with me as a villain?
I know that you're the leader now. That was
crazy.
Yeah, that was like the first thing I was like, how I thought Patrick was the leader. Now it's Julia.
Yeah, they keep switching. And last
No,
episode
but
it seemed like it was
Tree too.
Yeah.
It's
everyone.
Yeah.
That's
No,
the truth.
Patrick clearly passed off leadership to me in this last episode.
Huh. Yeah.
That's how they made it seem. It's crazy.
It's also wild to me that they took so many clips from when they were eavesdropping on YouTube after the police were there, and they took all these words and mix it around to be about all these different situations.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like that's when they were talking about Naraya, not when they were talking about Tyler.
Exactly. It's so weird. And all they need to do is just film the outside of our van and play anything we might have said in these 6 weeks and create a situation based on it.
Yeah, that's wild. kind of terrifying. It's like they
It's
can make
really
you say
terrifying.
anything.
Yeah. And like it's weird because it's like some people seem to be finding our content and understanding that. But then
Yeah.
you also have like this large mass of people that are just like older and just watch TV that are probably never going to do that greater research and are only going to see what they see on TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
There's
to
this
that, we can point to the fact that there's some like the instance of the TP, like sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. We might see the compost toilet in discontinuous stages of progress.
Right.
Another example, I was rewatching episode 1 with a couple friends here, and I noticed that on camera, and what made it into the final cut was Naraya meeting Tyler multiple times. Like she shakes hands with them in the like it's Bodhi and Mariah and then Bobby. And then later on, she comes to his introduce herself. It's and I bet if I looked harder, I could find more cases of that. Yeah.
Well, one of the biggest ones is like, yeah, they showed Tree taking Naraya's phone in front of a fully constructed teepee, and then they show the building of the teepee. And also they keep saying Tyler day 2, Tyler day 3, and it's all like Naraya left on Tyler's first day.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just so wild how they're able to just like they just create a storyline based on footage that is completely false.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of weird too because like yes, we have all these like actors who are planted to create drama. But then like none of us is really playing ourselves because even the footage of us just doing our normal stuff is being edited to such an absurd degree that we're like a totally different person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, they can play like someone saying something and then your reaction to a total different thing, and then create a whole scene of like, oh, all these people reacted like this to what that person said, and it's just not true.
So far, I feel like the only person who hasn't been misrepresented yet.
Who, you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your main like your claim to fame so far has been you saying, "Hey, I think we need a tornado shelter," which you totally did. A lot of it actually, I'm like, that is kind of how it happened. Like, it's like I'm like that is how that council happened. Like, I mean, in few words, you know, like that council went on for 2 hours, but you did suggest that, and then it was, you know, it's like, yeah, but it's funny to see it. It'll never do it justice, obviously.
It's also the in 2 episodes, one of the things in the description is after previous requests for a storm shelter were vetoed, that they were vulnerable and in need of evacuation. So it's like, are they going to show more of that? And then like, what evacuation? We didn't evacuate.
Yeah, we did. We did during that council.
Which is so
left
funny. I mean,
went to the basement from that fake I guess
CJ
that's a
wasn't there for
spoiler,
that,
so
I
we
think.
can't see that.
Oh,
we can't.
You weren't there for that. We can't give spoilers.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. But like, yeah,
something to do
technically, we did think that we needed to evacuate at one point. And so it was gold for the producers. They loved it.
It was gold. It was gold
for us too. We
the profit box saw dollar signs all the way home.
I'm so glad they included that dance that you guys did with the mask.
I wanna clip that scene. That's such a beautiful scene when Patrick's talking about like the beauties of community, and then you just see like me, Tree, and Shine like dancing our hearts out. That was so beautiful. There's so many scenes that I'm like, I want to turn that into like a beautiful meme, but I don't know how to record the show.
Sometimes that we're just planting trees in the field and just had an impromptu dance party out there. You were there, I think, Julia. I think maybe.
I was, yeah. It was amazing. We were playing like hardcore music. It was so good.
If you want anything from the first 2, I have all of it so far. Just let me know. I don't have.
Oh, really? You have it all recorded? Oh, nice. I want to make a lot of memes. I was thinking I want to make like funny TikToks where like they are like, it's like, you know, I don't know, like I don't know how to describe the TikToks I want to make, but it's like people being like, we need to investigate these guys, and like happy music playing, and then people being like washing dishes and like demonic music playing. It's like literally that's what it is. Like they're like coming in, like Oak says, like, yeah, like I would eat a person if I had to, and they're playing like happy music, and then it goes to like us like doing our thing, and it's like demonic, scary. Like it's so wild.
So
I'm
then
just used to being misrepresented. I mean, I don't think I've been misrepresented either. I guess I'm kind of a mime in the show, and I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah.
Making faces at people. Supportive faces, quizzical faces. But also at Shine, I really liked your Prophet Fox cameo. I thought that was great. I think that was really representative.
Yeah.
I don't think you've been misrepresented either.
The moment that jumps out at me most from this whole thing is like when Tree was like running to do something after the police thing, and we were all sitting there in the kitchen like, what's going on? And then suddenly Block is like, can I get a fucking camera over here? And all of a sudden all the kids take out the fox masks and start dancing. He got so mad. Like, I've never seen him get that mad. He's like, everyone's making fun of me. It's like, yeah.
I wish that was portrayed more.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see that they didn't have more cameras in more places. Like it seemed like one of the biggest surprises was that they were pretty much only filming, like actually filming one location at once, and they might have had like two cameras, maybe even three cameras in the same location. I like going into it, I'd never been part of any TV production, but I kind of expected that they would have a little bit more broad, that they go for more coverage, kind of. But I guess not.
No, that it's more about this storyline that they're trying to put, and any footage that they have from the entire 6 weeks that backs up that storyline. Like that you see footage of us on week 6. Like people, they like when Tyler was coming in, they showed Wolfgang and someone else that were there in the last week. I'm like, they were not even there for that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
On the subject of story, you can see in the end credits who was responsible for the storyline creation.
Oh, what does it say?
There's like one person that's like head of like storyline editor or something, or story editor. You can scroll back through it and you can
I want to talk to that person.
It's a boss lady's cousin.
Who?
Or lead person's cousin, if you remember.
Oh, Lizzie.
I think. I'm not completely sure because I never got last name. I'm usually pretty good with getting last names, but I'm not like super about it. I'm not rude about it. Give me your name.
Overall, I think that this episode was a lot more favorable towards like genuine, like the genuine drama that happens amongst the community versus like overly highlighting one specific. I like this episode a lot better than the other ones. It felt more like, I still hope that they play more of the rain scene. I thought that scene was so funny when Tashila first arrives and we're all like trying to combat the rain. I hope that they play more of that. But who knows? I mean, they seem to just have a storyline that they're pushing and they just start going with it,
Yeah, it's hard to know. We're halfway done now.
I was kind of disappointed that there are a couple things that they didn't show very much of. Like there's a council around the pond at the garden that they did film.
Yeah, that council is like erased.
There was a lot more I don't know. this seemed like there was pace to it. And also, I remember there being a lot of excitement around getting Shine's bus up the hill. And I remember someone saying that's probably going to be like the cliffhanger, something like the end of the episode on that. But that
Well, yeah, but
even
it wasn't. It wasn't
it didn't
anything.
even
You
make
could
it in the final cut. Like you'd think that would make a really good dramatic
I saw it.
people, everybody working together for something.
It was in there for sure.
Yeah,
It's funny
it
because
just
we thought
wasn't
like
really put together like that.
Yeah.
we thought that like, okay, yeah, they're gonna try to create drama with these people, but maybe we can create enough drama amongst our own process that will distract from that. And so like even the controlled burn, I thought that would be a whole episode. Like that could have been a whole episode. You
Yeah.
could have like you could have turned off your TV and not known if we started a forest fire or not, and then found out that we didn't. Like that could have been a whole ass episode. And like it's just people drama, which I guess is what people want.
Is it though, or is it something that is pushed onto people and the people watch it and then people say after the fact,
Right.
"Oh, you're watching this, you must like it, you must want it."
I could see it being actually not a good move because I don't know. I mean, I haven't gotten that much reach with my TikToks, but most people that have been responding have been like, I wish that they just showed more of like your actual storyline. And I know that Discovery right now is kind of like scrambling to figure out how they're going to market the show. And I wonder how much of that is like them thinking that the
Oops.
Dropped.
Yeah.
It does, I think she's right though. Like this story is so complicated and chaotic and like less interesting than an honest one would have been. And that's what people are saying. Like, what are we going to be building communities at some point, or like, is there going to be gardening happening at some point? And it's like, who knows?
Because they're not really showing much of like what we're doing.
Yeah, it would have been better if they did.
Yeah. But in the last couple episodes, maybe it will be about how we come together and accomplish and finish these projects and what that means.
It seems like it's the opposite. It's called the garden fractured or divided or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like
that's
everyone
true.
fighting over, should we have a party? And it's like, okay.
Well, I didn't really want it to be that.
I think
But
we have a huge opportunity to tell the story of like all that stuff, right? And I think we have a platform to be giving people what they actually want, which is all of that,
that's not really what's being pushed. So it's like up for people to like look further themselves, and yeah, then it's just like less people look further themselves. Like most people just watch it on the TV and then
Yeah. We've been telling a lot of people to check out your videos because you recently did tours of all these different lands and like showing all the different stuff that's still happening months later, so like during the last one we told everybody to go look at your tours, and like that's great.
It's fantastic coverage. I love it.
Oh yeah, Mill was supposed to be here. Where's Mill?
Oh yeah, that's right.
He forgot. Or maybe he didn't realize the time was changing.
Yeah, because he's at Eastern Standard Time or right now, right? So
Yeah, well, they're in Atlanta. I think they're in the same time as Tennessee. I'd like at the Garden.
The Garden is Central.
No, I guess I guess not. Yeah, the time changed. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So it'd be
Because
1
I
a.m. there.
remember noticing that it was like darker out in the morning when I woke up.
Guys points out, I think a lot of us made lots of TikToks while it was happening and videos on YouTube and stuff, and people can see all of that probably. But like also I think we could rehash all those videos. Like we could be reposting all that content that we created back then and explaining like, you want this level of detail, here it is. Like this is how you do a garden there, right? It was interesting to see like in the show, like Tree trying to do that, like explaining how composting works. And like Oak just being an asshole.
I wish I'd been there. Because I mean, I want to make an assertion that the Bodhi is the tempo of the soul, and either any of those three people, or yourself, or Zans, or maybe Jag, probably could have been able to give a good explanation of microbes. I'm saying
Well, also, like, who fucking cares?
Yeah.
You know, like he was just trying to be an asshole. Like it's not like he wanted the answer.
You don't need to know how something works to be able to work it, and that's a truth that that I think Tree was trying to get at.
Yeah, yeah. Ugh, that guy. I do not like that
guy. Ooh, way down south in the land of traitors, rattlesnakes and alligators.
100%. Yeah.
Come away, walk away, come away.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go.
Yeah, I think it's been 2 hours. It's probably time to call it.
Yep.
All right, well, see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye. How do I? Okay, leave.